than what I really am. Really touched me, it really did. I made up a couple of notes, but I'm going to pitch them. So be prepared. They're went to pitch. We're halfway through the year. How many, you have to raise your hands, have kept their resolutions? One. You're in good company. A test was done a number of years ago. I think it was during the year 2019 to 2022. And some researchers on a government grant, I'm sure, had nothing to do but study how well people followed through on their resolutions. 8.9% felt they followed through on them. I think if my math is correct, 1 point something did not. Most of us did not. I think we beat the average in here. Maybe we're higher than that. We make resolutions for a lot of reasons. Some of us have all good intents in the world. I start each year that way with weight and with fitness and with my Bible reading and my being open to God's call. There are times when I'm far less than perfect, a lot of times. But what does that word resolution mean? It means you're taking a particular aim at, if you just look up the word resolute, that's a sincere effort to try and do something and follow through. So resolution is a sincere. I shared with some people at camp this week that a number of our folks embarked on reading the Bible this year. Some maybe for the first time, a complete read. Not just reading words, but actually studying the Bible. And a number are still with it. A lot of us stumbled along the way. We missed a day, we picked up a day. We lost 2 days, we picked it back up. And once you've slipped a little bit, it's easy to slip again. But if you've stuck with it, you're well through halfway of the Bible. That's pretty cool if you've never done it before. And you can look back and you start counting off the books. If you went Old Testament and bits and pieces of the New Testament, like is done in our devotional, wow. We're going to do it this year. So I encourage you, keep with it. If you got lost along the way, pick up today and start again from today forward. If you can pick up the ones you missed, that's good. Not everyone can do that. One gentleman said, I'm going to make a resolution to treat my little brother better than I ever have. Guess how long he lasted? Not quite through lunch. 30 minutes. And he started telling his little brother off. Well, we had 3 little characters with us on the bus that were all related in our little van. And man, I wanted to go back and sit between them, but I didn't really want to. But we survived the year, and it's like, wow. God says to us in Romans 7, this guy Saul Paul, and we heard about him this week at a camp from our young instructor, who did a nice job, Nikki. I don't want to put him down. He did a nice job with this particular one. He expressed his own difficult situation in his spiritual journey as being hard. He was a leader of the Bible, and like our recent study of fathers in the Bible, every one of them was human, which means imperfect. They made mistakes just like us. They had imperfections. But Paul kept on trying to do better. And that's what God asked us to do. I wonder this morning, are we like Paul, and like our New Year's resolutions, trying to deal with life just like Paul did? I don't understand. I want to do the right thing. I can even hear Paula talking in my ear up here, telling me, Dave, do the right thing. But then this guy here is telling me something else. Or that evil guy's whispering in my ear, telling me something else. And it's hard sometimes. You're in a position of authority sometimes. I've seen this in the past few years as we dealt with disaffiliation. I didn't know who to believe sometimes, but I knew those that were listening to the words of God in the Bible were the ones I wanted to be with. And we did, thank God. So like Paul, they had to come to an end of self-effort and throw themselves on the mercy of God. Do you understand what that means? I can't do it anymore, God. I need you. Sam shared some young people have decided to do that very early in their life. Wow. If I took a piece of paper and I had a pen, which I do somewhere, and I put on that pen 0 to 100. In America, they say we will live maybe 70 years on the average, something like that, 72, 74. Sorry about that, some of you coming up on that. But if you work where you're at on that chart, we've already lived through a whole bunch of stuff, haven't we? Some of us we're on overtime. We're on overtime. We better be in close touch with God because we're on overtime. The kids, the young people, including Sam and Jared and Kylie, and those are starting their professions very soon, are way back here with a whole lot of life to live. Are we going to live it for and with God, or try to live it on our own? We've all been there. We've all been there. Some of us struggle most of our life. And what do? Instead of facing things on our own, we look for helpers. We look for stuff to get through that day. That might be medicinal. That might be alcohol. That may be a life that we know is not correct. It'll be okay because tomorrow I'll do better. And tomorrow never comes. What can we do? What did Paul do? When Rebecca was pregnant, she was told this by God. I want to make sure I read it to you exactly. She was a grandniece, first of all, or great niece of Abraham. And do you remember the story of this lady, Rebecca, and what the Lord told her? He said, 2 nations are in your womb, and the 2 shall be divided. And the younger will serve, or the older will serve the younger. And we know that story. And guess what? We're still fighting that war in the Middle East now. That comes from those 2 boys. And that's continued all these years. Is that crazy? If you know your Bible, you know that all that tension and turmoil in the Middle East will not end until Jesus Christ comes back to earth. I don't care what's written on a piece of paper by somebody mumbling mouth to someone else to make them feel good. A memorandum or a contract or whatever you want to say, that will not be settled until Jesus comes. So here's my thought. Is Jesus coming sooner? Is Jesus coming now? And if he does, we don't have to worry about it. If he doesn't, we're going to live in turmoil. Those of us who are Christians. It's going to be a difficult time because the world's going to be against us. I believe we're all going to be raptured, and we're going to be out of here. And there's going to be 144,000 witnesses walking all the face of the earth trying to bring others to Christ who were not Christians prior to the rapture. 144,000 from the 12 tribes, 12,000 of each will be out there witnessing. And then the real end's coming. Wow. It says in Romans 7, it's almost like a story about my young life. When I was a youngster, somehow I got through college. Somehow I got through 2 master's degrees programs. I still don't know how that happened. Somehow I was privileged to be able to even play a little ball in college. I wasn't that good. But then all kind of stuff was piling in on me all at once. And I didn't do well with it because I didn't understand myself at all. And then in this church, right there, it all changed. Right there. I threatened a couple months ago to tear out the altars because nobody uses them. I don't want to do that. I hope you see the use for an altar. Changed my life because of a 12-year-old girl speaking. Someone the age of our young kids here spoke from this pulpit and talked about the first 5 books of Moses. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. And she stole my heart. And God took my heart and repaired it. Did you ever feel like you wanted to do what was right, but you just couldn't, and you were being pulled in the wrong direction? I think we've all been there. My grandma used to say to me, imagine you're sitting out by the lake somewhere, I'm all for that, and on your one shoulder is an angel telling you to do all the right things. And he or she's whispering in your ear and do this, do that, or you're out on a horseback ride and someone's along with you. But in the other ear, at the same time, or right after the angel speaks, an evil one's whispering into the other ear and telling you not to do those things and not respect what God has told you to do. And what do? Help. Where do I go? Well, we know where to go. There is good news. God saves us through his Son, Jesus Christ. How many have been to Boston? Anyone been to Boston? Our granddaughter's up there right now. That's mayhem, isn't it? You love it. That's mayhem to me. The streets and the traffic and all that stuff. Atlanta's the same way. There's like 8 to 12 rows of people going in one direction on a parkway like Pittsburgh. 8 to 10 rows going 80 miles an hour. And we moved our son there from Birmingham. We had one of those U-Haul things. And yours truly happened to be driving at that point in about 90-degree weather, soaking wet, and people in front of you, behind you. I'm like, wow, that's one of those times I wanted help. Air conditioner wasn't working, and it was the two sons and myself. It was, wow. So how do you deal with it? You might even know which is the right highway, but it's over there, and you're over here in this lane. And that's life, isn't it? How do I get from point A to point B with God? If you go this and you miss, you may have to go another 20 miles to get turned around and come back. We went to Paradise once for a big meeting, and my good buddy from Jennerstown was the co-driver. And he said, I know a shortcut. So we got to Donegal, and we made a left and went back towards the animal farm and all that stuff. And he said, just keep going straight. And we went about 15 miles, and I'm thinking, I'm going that way. Paradise is that way, you know. And after about 10 miles, we turned right because GPS told us to do that. And we went about 5 miles. So we're almost late for a general conference meeting at that point. And we make a call to the district superintendent. And Bob said to us, who are you with? And I said, Chuck Hillbold. If he's watching today, I'll get it. And he says, I understand. When you get here, you get here. And that next road was closed. They were doing, we had to backtrack the whole way back to Donegal and go back. So that's life, isn't it, sometimes? You go east, west, and south to get to north. Moral, ethical, theological, and marital decisions can be like that. Decisions about new jobs for those that are going into new careers and stuff are kind of like that sometimes. But here's the deal. The Bible is a book full of answers. The Bible is what? Basic information before leaving earth. If you don't know that, write that down. Basic information before leaving earth. Every problem, every possible thing that you may run into in your life, the answers are in the Bible. You can't beat that. You can't buy enough textbooks to do that. And they cost too much anyhow, and nobody reads them. Our body is not AI, and being human is not our problem. God created our bodies, and he saw that was good. Jesus even took on a human body. We call that incarnation, so he would know what we went through. We recall that Jesus was indeed raised bodily from the dead. That's pretty cool. The fight is not in our own skin and our bones. Our body and our battle is with the flesh and with the evil one that tries to control it. At times our problems, or maybe the world's problems, seem bigger than we can deal with. We get discouraged, and maybe we'll pop a pill or two. And sometimes those problems are big. But we don't have to be self-reliant. You and I were created by God in his image. You can't beat that. We were created by God in his image to be able to rely on him And guess what? He wants an intimate relationship with you and I. Case closed. But you must open the door. I don't care what age you are. I don't care what you've been through in your life. You got to open that door. It's like that door to the outside does not have a handle for Jesus to get in unless you and I open that door for him to come into your life. That's a choice we must make. I've been approached by folks, and I've dealt with folks. I dealt with people very, very late at night with guns in their hands who were threatening suicide and to destroy their whole family if I didn't come and talk with them that night. One of the young pastors I'm mentoring right now could not come to a meeting on Tuesday because he had a self-destructed parishioner. 25 years old, young man wanted to kill himself. Folks may feel crippled or trapped by their circumstances or their substance. Thanks be to God for his love, his grace, and people like you and me who somehow stand up and stand alongside that person. Today, this week, this year is one of those times. You have a chance to stand maybe alongside someone that you know, maybe a neighbor you don't even know, and you know they have kids, and you know they don't come to church, to offer that opportunity for them to come. Can you and I share the good news with other people? Yeah, we don't have to quote the Bible. The church, folks, isn't just what goes on in this room. The church is what goes on out there through us. That's our choice, to be involved or not to be involved. We can't just wait for people who maybe look like us or maybe act like us to come in the door so we can welcome them. Because God's going to send us, and he has sent us some people who don't look like us and don't dress like us and maybe don't act like us. We have a reputation of being a welcoming church. I hope that continues. God shines out from us like a lighthouse. You've heard the story of the big ship. It was probably one of those big oil things that contains millions of gallons of oil. And he saw this light out in front of him, this other boat coming. And he said to the other person, he got on the speaker system and cast it out there, almost like the old CBs. He said, "Turn right 10 degrees or I'm going to run into you." And the person called back, said, "You turn right 10 degrees or it's going to be a problem." And the captain said, "You don't seem to understand. I have 1 million gallons of oil on my boat. You must turn right to avoid a collision." The young man who called back said, "I'm a teenager. I'm a CB. I'm in the Coast Guard, and I'm in a lighthouse. You're in trouble if you don't turn." Think about it. There's lighthouses out there for us that help us to see the way. We get put in situations sometimes like Queen Esther. Queen Esther had the chance to save her whole nation by one decision. One decision. And what was she told by her uncle? Perhaps you were created for a day such as this. Maybe that's where you and I are today. Perhaps you're being created, and we're created, and God's waiting for you to accept that call to whatever it is he's called you to be. One of the joys of ministry is this past week, of course, but one of the joys is ministering and seeing restoration of folks who have lost their way. God can see the good in us. Sometimes it's hard when we look at each other to see that good in someone else, or maybe look in the mirror and see it in ourselves. God can see it. Paul always said, what has ailed humankind for years? I'm trying to do the right thing, but I can't just make that decision. If we recognize that we often say no to something that is a yes in God's eyes, we're condemning ourselves to a life of hell. We all hear little calls. They may come in the place of a person. They may come in the person calling or texting us and offering us a chance to do this or that. Or they may come in another way. Someone knocks on your door. It's crazy what goes on. Closing thought. If we say no too often to God, we're choosing death over life. We do have choices. As we look at that cross behind me, you know that God has said no to our sins. He wants us to be alive in him. A couple years ago, 350,000 little kids were allowed to immigrate into this country illegally. They were brought in by cartels and sadly by some people within this United States. We have found 145,000 of those little kids. That means there's almost 200,000 still out there that are probably enslaved in who knows what, factories, sexual slavery, whatever. A little girl from this church had as her job in the FBI helping to find those kids. She's since retired, but thank God, be to God that she was in that. God calls us to a life of freedom that we will not be enslaved. Let's hear that call this morning. Maybe answer that call this morning in your own way as we sing the final song. Father, help us as we prepare for our final song, that we hear the voice of the excitement of the freedom that we have in this country to say yes or to say no. It's our choice. But our hope, as it says on the cover of our bulletin, is in the Lord. As we sing together, let there be peace on earth. Let it begin with me. Diane?